And good evening, and welcome back to the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston for the Coaches Show with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, where we talk all things Citadel for the next hour. Get ready for the upcoming game this Saturday back at home, a rarity here early in the year. A home game for the Bulldogs. They welcome in Furman, rivalry game, big matchup in the SoCon, coming up Saturday at 2 o'clock, and only a few tickets left, just a few standing room only tickets, so get yours while you can before it's all sold out for this game on Saturday. If you're joining us here in person, you can always submit questions for Coach that we'll get to later on. We'll get to our film breakdown a little bit as well and talk about all things Bulldogs football with the head coach himself, who's with us, of course, this evening. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Good. I didn't know if I was going to make it here on time. I ran into a little bit of traffic on the way. I was late getting out of practice a little bit. I kind of held a couple periods in there. I want to make sure that we got what we had to get in, and then Colonel Gordon came over and spoke to some of the seniors, so I was jammed up pretty good there at the end of practice.
Yeah, I think we all got stuck in some traffic over here, but fortunately able to make it and be able to talk about Citadel football here for the next hour. I'll ask you just one question about this past Saturday. Appalachian State, good FBS team. That's one of those, you bury the tape and you move on, but just overall, just impressions going up against a really good FBS squad this past Saturday.
Well, we certainly should have made a better game of it, and really the first quarter and a half when you can't get a first down and you're punting to them all the time, that's a lot of pressure on the defense. We did get a really good fourth down stop in there in the first quarter, and I thought that was going to give us a little momentum. We took a shot, didn't get the shot, didn't get another first down until the second quarter there. So the game got out of hand. It got out of hand early. They had a few really big plays. What you do notice about them is the quarterback. The quarterback makes throws that you rarely will see in our conference, but you definitely will see when you do play. When you play Clemson, you play North Carolina, you play some of those South Carolina, you see those throws being made. The fade route on the sideline, we had it well covered. Now we're just a half a step away, and it's just. You can't make up for that. When you go and play a team like when we played Alabama in 18 there, is you've got to kill the clock. You've got to get first down. We played Florida State my first year here in 2014, and they were the national champions coming off that year. And we just killed the clock as much as we possibly could there and hold it close. And then, you got a chance to beat South Carolina and Georgia Tech. That's all you did was you just wore them out, wore them down. So when we didn't do that in the first quarter, really the game got away from us and got out of hand. Now, it's a very good football team. They will, if not win, be very close to winning that conference, I would imagine. They've got being that JMU can't win the conference, I think they've still got a pretty good chance. They probably got to run through Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina, but other than that, I think they've got the team to do it. They run the ball really well. They play really sound defense. They've got 2 to 3 really good running backs, and their offensive line is, as I explained here last week, is as good as you'll see at that level.
Yeah, it sure is, and we saw that a little bit throughout that game Saturday in Boone against Appalachian State. Now, we've discussed, the changing and the blocking rules this year and the difficulty that makes running on the perimeter. It seems like offensively, though, you've had some success in the last couple of weeks in terms of the misdirection with the A-backs almost between the tackles.
You have to, and unfortunately, that's what we have to go to right now in order to keep people, so to slow teams down, right? So the game is really sped up, and the one thing that has slowed teams down against us is the cut block, right? You've got the fear of the cut block on the perimeter all the time. You've got the fear of the cut block by our offensive linemen. It really slows the linebackers down. It really slows the secondary down. When you don't have that, it really sped up the game, and my argument against the new rule was that we don't really want to have this game any faster than it already is. It's dangerous enough out there when you've got all those guys moving around in open space. You're making it that much faster, and then what you're going to do is you're going to force more up-top collisions, right? Because you can't go down low anymore. So now you're forcing more head-to-head collisions right there. And obviously it fell on deaf ears. I don't think anybody really cared what I had to say about it, nor any of the other triple option teams out there had to say about it. And their main concern was probably just getting rid of us as an offense.
What we did see Saturday was some good running from a couple of your young guys, Jay Graves, Billups, and Crawford as well in the backfield. So we got a look at them, saw them a little bit more, and they did some good things in that game. Yeah,
Johnny's been coming along. Johnny's a freshman. He's from Florida. He's got really good speed and quickness to him. He works extremely hard. He's got a little bit of a knack for football, loves to play the game. I think you'll see a lot more of him. I was trying to hold him as long as I possibly could on the red shirt. Javante came on last year pretty well. He was a slow start this year. Had a good offseason, just kind of was just slow during camp a little bit. But he's come along. He's got terrific hands. He made a great catch there and almost had the opportunity to score right before half. We were trying to push the ball in right there. But both those two guys, you'll see a lot more of in the next couple of weeks.
So coming off that loss against Appalachian State, but if there's any concern about moving forward, you get Furman coming in. It's a home game. Obviously, a lot going on this weekend, ring weekend, parents weekend, a sold-out crowd. So I guess a good opponent to follow up here in a good situation that if there was any concern about trying to put that one behind you against an FBS team, that now you get Furman coming to town back into conference in a big game this weekend.
Well, I said to the team yesterday after practice, which we had a very good practice yesterday. It was good today, probably not as good as yesterday, but what I said to the team after practice was sometimes, you may need an opponent like this to get their attention. You may need a butt whipping like you got last Saturday to get their attention a little bit. And that's what I had hoped would happen, whether it's Furman or whether it's the butt whipping that we took last week. Hopefully we've got our attention. We've had 2 solid days, like I said. We should be ready to go. Hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 of those guys that were out last week back again this week and be able to function a little bit better.
Citadel taking on Furman this Saturday at home. We'll start to break that down and look at the opponent this week. 2 p.m. kickoff. Only about 300 standing room tickets remaining, so get yours while you can. And if you're here in person, or even if you happen to be in the area, come on out. If you submit a question for Coach, you have a chance to actually win some tickets. And the Bulldogs, those tickets are going fast for their home games. As the Citadel back at home this week for the first time in a few weeks with a big game against Furman. We'll break it all down. Break down some film when we come back as well, and a whole lot more to get ready for the Bulldogs and the Paladins coming up this weekend. And we'll look at some film when we come back here on the Coaches Show. The head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. After this, from the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston, the Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. Back with more after this all across the Citadel Sports Network. From the Sportsbook of Charleston in North Charleston, and also the Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits as well. You can come out and join us in person each week as we get ready for the Citadels game each and every week, and also have a film breakdown. You have a chance to submit questions for Coach and get some good food as well. Watch the games on all the TVs here at the Sportsbook of Charleston and come hang out with us each and every week. In fact, moving forward, the Coaches Show will be on Tuesday nights here moving forward. So mark that down and be ready for next week. We'll be here a night earlier moving forward here the rest of the way. Tuesday night starting next week for the Coaches Show here with Coach Thompson. Well, this is the time when we usually do the film breakdown, and in the case of tonight, we'll look at this week's opponent with Furman coming to town on Saturday. And Coach, I know these clips, at least some of them come from last year's matchup with Furman. It was a 24-14 game, and one of those that, not to bring up, tough memories, but a frustrating second half where it was a one-possession game. You guys were right in there. There was, if I remember correctly, a missed field goal, a couple of fumbles as well. So one of those games on the road against Furman last year, a winnable game, a close game that came down to the fourth quarter. Yeah,
we had our opportunities here, and as I went back and watched it this week, it was all coming back to me. Yeah, we had two missed field goals right there in the first half that really jammed us up. We had an opportunity to put points on the board just before the half ended, and couldn't do it. We were down inside the 10-yard line, got a holding penalty on the perimeter, and unfortunately, we didn't get any points out of that either. I think we missed a field goal there as well. So right there, that's 6 points. We just didn't collect on any of those points right there. We gave up two really, really big plays. Other than that, I thought we played well defensively. And as I said in my press conferences, there's a couple things, and I'll take you over to the offensive side here, their offensive side here after this. More relative over on this side. I'll take you a little bit through what we're trying to do here and some of our base offense. So this is a very similar team schematically than we just saw at App State. They're going to move around pretty good. They've got a pretty good game plan. They've been facing us, this defense corner, I believe this is his fourth go at us right here, so we've got a pretty good plan against us here. So we're in spread formation right here, and the play that we are running right now is this is one of our option plays. This is one of our veer plays, okay? Again, we've got what we call midline triple play, which is the tightest track that we run, meaning that our fullback is right down the center's rear end, and we've got a veer track, which is inside leg of the guard, which the fullback will then take his path to the inside leg of the guard. And then we've got an outside veer track, which is the inside leg of the tackle. So we've got three triple option plays. A lot of people always hear me talk about whether we have a triple option, double option, inside veer, outside veer, or midline triple. The midline triple play is it's a play that's been around for a while. It was first kind of come about at Air Force, and when Fisher DeBerry was there, and they really started it, and we picked it up here. I picked it up probably somewhere around 2004, 2005. They've been running it for a few years, and it's really been a good play for us, but it's a play that's evolved quite a bit for us. So I'll take you through it. Is our reads kind of stay the same. We're still reading this guy as our read key, and we're still pitching off of this guy. We've just tightened down our track a little bit. The one thing that it allows you to do is it allows you to keep your backside A-back stagnant, meaning he doesn't have to move, all right, to get into pitch phase. You twirl the front side A-back to try to get your secondary to move and try to soften up this corner a little bit. So we're still reading one, we're pitching two. Okay, so there's your read key. They did a little bit of a cross charge in here. Jalen goes ahead and hands the football off, all right, and then you've got your guard right here and your tackle. So your tackle is technically blocking for your quarterback. Your guard is right here. He's blocking for your fullback. Okay, and then we just handed the ball off and inside. There's your read key going up the field. All right, and as you can see, we're that close right there. If we don't trip up right here, we're that close to hitting this thing out the backside. Now, on the perimeter wise, as I said, we're going to try to twirl this thing. He's your pitch back. He's your arc back here. All right, we're going to try to push crack this, meaning that our wide receiver is going to soften up our corner, and then he's going to take the safety, and he's going to leave the A-back to go ahead and handle the corner, which is the closest guy to him. Take you to the tight right here. So we get a good 7 or 8 yards on this thing. Number one is we got good size splits in here. Okay, we've got to cover all of these gaps, but so do they. They've got to cover all these gaps. The center's going to have to base block this guy. He's going to have to base him straight up as best he possibly can. All right, and then he's going to have to take this guy. He's going to help get a little bit of help with the guard, and the guard's going to take guard. He's going to take the nose guard all the way up to the backside linebacker here. This is Logan. Logan does a good job of hugging it. He does a good job of hugging it and then sliding behind his block. Is that he just misses it out the backside right here. So it's one of our main plays against this front. They do a really good job of blocking it and kind of doing a little bit of a different thing to it and making sure that we can get the ball to the perimeter. It's a good way to get the ball to the perimeter. It's same exact look, same exact play for us. All right. we just have a little bit of a different take on it. So this guy is our read key right here, and this guy's our pitch key right here. So we just changed up the blocking scheme a little bit. This is after the half. All right, we were taking the guard and we were sending him to the backside. Well, the backside guy really wasn't as much of the issue as the front side guy. So at the halftime, we made a little bit of an adjustment where we just said, okay, we're going to go base on base right here. We're going to go bob this call right here. He's going to go there. He's going to go there. All right, and we're going to still read him as our one and pitch off of him as two. So in this case right here, we really should be handing this ball off. That's your read key, okay? As you can see, he gets a little bit crazy on this, the quarterback does, and he ends up pitching off the same guy. So you never want to pull and pitch off the same guy. So if you see an extra guy on the perimeter, there's a good chance that the quarterback misread it. All right, a lot of people always ask me, did he misread that, all right? A lot of times he didn't misread it unless you see just way too many guys on the perimeter right there. We're always going to try to make sure that we get that ball handed off first, make it look like, let's see what it looks like when he tackles our fullback right here. Okay, McKim does a good job right here of picking it up, and we're still able to get yards on it. And as you can see, like, there's your dangerous cut block right here. There it goes. There it is, naming guys out here. And we still get a halfway decent play out of it. All right, moving on here. Okay, so people, the next question I always get is, why do you run so much dive? All right, why do you run so much dive? I mean, it's dive up the middle, and commentators, I listen to them, and it drives me absolutely insane, especially when you watch these Army and the Navy and those. It's not necessarily dive. It's not necessarily dive fullback up the middle. It's just a generic term that a lot of people use, but this is truly dive, okay? Sometimes people mistake it as when we just hand the ball off on a veer track, whether it's inside veer or outside veer. It could be just the read that we're looking at, all right? But this is truly dive, and the reason why we do run dive is this, all right? One of the reasons why is we just got this backside linebacker right here. Watch your backside linebacker. There he is, all right? So backside to our play. The linebacker he's turning and running and getting over the top, right? So what do you see in the backside? Well, you see open gaps, okay? So this is a backside linebacker control play. All we're trying to do is get the ball back into these gaps right here. A lot of teams do it with inside zone. It's a popular term. It's a popular blocking scheme. We're getting to it just a little bit differently with just a traditional dive play. So our fullback's eyes stay on the nose guard here. If the nose guard works out like he does here, he says hat over the top, we slide to the backside gap, we clean up the backside gap with our scoops. All right, if the nose guard stays front side, we have this little bit of a double team right here. We've got these three guys, all right, that are going to take these two guys. Now, if this guy was to come down, we would eventually get him in the mix too. So these three guys will have some form or fashion, the A gap, the B gap, and the C gap right here. We're going to try to dig those gaps out as best we possibly can. So you can see where it would squirt out right here. The other thing is it holds these guys in, all right? He doesn't get out of the box on the perimeter. He kind of stays backside of where he belongs, and we're going to try to fit the ball back here. That's the reason why we run a lot of traditional dive, and a lot of triple option teams run this play just to make sure, all right, that they're getting guys held down into positions. That's got to be a fundamental of your offense. All right, we got a little bit of a third and short here. Once again, they've got 50 defense, so they got the three down linemen, two backers. All right, we call it 3-4, 50 defense. It's all kind of blended together. 50 defense, you used to have more what we call defensive tackles here, defensive tackle there, and a nose guard. These were defensive ends. A couple of years ago, I went back and watched the Arkansas versus Citadel game, and they were running a 50 defense, and I was like, man, it looks nothing like what you see 50 defenses right now. Is these guys were like 250, 260. These guys were like 220, 230, but these guys were in three-point stances, and they were hammering it up the field. And, everybody was just about in the three-point stances, including the wide receivers out here. Just a completely different deal, but a different take on it, right? So they're playing this as more outside linebackers, all right? These guys are more inside linebackers right here, obviously, all right? But these guys are mostly downhill players. And we've seen this defense now. This will be our third time. All right, what we have here is a zone option play, okay? The A-back starts to go one way, but we get the ball checked over to the other side, okay? So we're running a zone option here, so this is one of our double option plays, okay? So on the double option plays, we're just looking to get, some people call them speed option. You're looking to get the ball to the perimeter as quickly as you possibly can, all right? You're trying to get leverage on all of these guys. You're trying to capture this guy into the backside gap. You're trying to capture this guy into the front side gap. So the B-back's going to be responsible for the play side inside linebacker. The double team right here is going to take place all the way to the backside linebacker, and we're going to tight scoop and foo-foo or scoop the backside here. All right, we missed a little bit of pitch phase right there. We're going the wrong way. All right, so this is really what we're calling an angle, right? So we got a slant to the field, we've got an angle. So they're taking the whole front right here, and this is what you got to do a pretty good job of preparing for. This is very tough. It's challenging for us. All right, they really want to slam everybody down into these gaps. All right, when they slam everybody, this is a tight short yardage situation right here. All right, so all we're really just trying to do is just get the quarterback to get us a yard or two in there. All right, and in doing so, what ended up happening is we're getting this thing viced. And I'll go to the tight. We found a little bit of a crease. All right, but you can see how this thing closes down pretty quickly on us. So these two guys are going to double team to the backside. We're going to take the A-back and we're going to try to load him up into the play side linebacker, and we're going to try to kick this thing. It's going to be like a power play, okay, what a lot of teams refer to as a power play. We're trying to take our fullback and try to kick out the 9 technique right here and try to get up and underneath it all. Okay, so there's a couple of different plays right there. So we saw the dive, we saw the midline triple, all right, and then we saw the zone option, and now we're just in a short yardage situation, just trying to get ourselves some yards right there. So a couple, 3 different things that we do a little bit differently. Okay, so here's last week's game, and then I pulled all of their base play, and I want to show you just the variations of them. Sanford's in a similar style defense. They got a 3-down front. Sanford played them fairly well. They ended up throwing the ball quite a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about their run game, because their run game is pretty exceptional. Their tight end, they use their tight end a lot in this H-back position, which a lot of teams are doing. He's the All-American. He's a really good player. I think that the part of the key is just knowing where he's at and making sure that we've got him accounted for. The next key guy is the running back. I think the running back, the one that busted out on us twice last year, he's got really good speed. He's hard to catch, so we've got to be able to contain him, and really it's going to force a lot of the fits, all right, to be right on. So these guys they're a little bit of a 3-down front. You can see they're kind of playing this as a stack or a bare front, but similar enough to our guys who will play a 3-down front. So this is a power play. Okay, so a power play, all we're trying to do in power plays is we're going to try to create double teams as best we possibly can. All right, so you can see there's going to be a little bit of a double team here, and they're going to pull this backside guard. All right, the backside guard's going to pull and wrap, all right, and he's going to see what fits it. The H-back right here, he's going to go ahead and he's going to take the support player here. So he's going to try to kick the widest support defender, and then they're going to power play this thing, and the guard's going to try to wrap all the way up. All right, and they're going to find a little bit of a crease, but you can see what it's forcing them to do. Who's that making the tackle? Well, that's the safety making the tackle right there. And so it forces your safety to get involved in the run game. Anytime that you get your safety involved in the run game, the one thing that you always got to be cautious of now is the next thing to hit is the play action, which is what we're always looking for on offense as well. So I'll show you a couple different variations of it. There it is right there. They're going to pull this guy around. They're going to double team back to this right here. They do a good job. This offensive line is really well coached. Clay does a good job with those guys here. They're strong. I think they're built really well for this system right here. There's a good kick out block right there. It's a wrap block right there by the guard. And now it's all the way up onto the safety. And this is 8, who's their top running back right there. Okay, once again, it is different formation now, all right, different formation. Tight end's back over here, but they're doing exactly the same thing essentially, all right? They're just taking it, they're just gapping it a little bit differently. Now they're sending the tight end back down and inside, and they're double teaming all the way back down and inside, so it's gap inside, gap inside. This, unlike last week I was telling you they're a big zone team. These guys are more gap-oriented, which is what we are, more of a gap-oriented team. They're going to try to create angles, all right? So the quarterback right here, he's going to try to read here. This is an RPO for these guys, all right? You could see he's wanting to throw this ball right here. I think he ends up following it, he ends up following it right here, but he wants to throw it. His read is right here, Okay, if this guy starts to fold in and make the play, that's where that ball has to go. So you could see this is where it's very, very challenging in those RPOs, is you got to stay flat-footed in here. You've got to cloud up the read for the quarterback, all right? So that way he doesn't have an opportunity to be able to throw this ball. Now, if he throws this ball, he's got linemen downfield, which I don't think that matters anymore, all right? But he's got to take this thing up and inside. Pretty good for him. Once again, another RPO. There's your double team. Center does a good job, handles it on the back block. Guard does a good job, pulls and wraps, sees it, kicks it. All right, so one play, two different combinations to be able to run it, one with an RPO, one without it. All right, spread you out a little bit more. They got the tight end up top right here. There it is right there. A little bit different formation. They have the two receivers on this side now. Concept's all the same right here. As long as this guy doesn't fold in or this guy doesn't fold in right here, he's got the quick and easy one-on-one right there. He's kind of making this probably more as a pre-snap determination because of where everybody's aligned. He's got open access to it. He can get this thing out pretty quickly. So this is one thing, you're always talking about those the little paper cuts that are getting you right at the 4 and the 5 yards dump off right here. Those are the ones that are challenging. But this is what you got to do to be able to do it. You got to make them execute it every single play, all right, and tackle it up for the 3 or 4 yards that it is. Take it to the tight here. Same exact thing, gapping it down, pulling around, pulling wrap, pull kick. All right, so that's it right there. That's their power run game and the power RPO game, and then a little bit of continuing education on the midline triple, the zone option, and the dive, and the reasons why we run those plays.
Yeah, which is always interesting stuff. If you were listening on radio, as I say each and every week, get over to YouTube and search the Citadel Sports YouTube account to find that breakdown archived on demand to see exactly what Coach was talking about as we do our film breakdowns each and every week. Always interesting stuff as we look at the matchup last year at Furman, what Furman just did this past weekend in their loss against Samford. They had a quarterback injury 2 weeks ago. Jace Wilson's taken over. He was the quarterback in the game against you guys a year ago. So you saw him a year ago, but just looking at that offense, when that quarterback change happens, anything change with the offense, or they're still doing the same type of stuff?
No, we're still doing the same type of stuff. I think the one thing that you have to be more cognizant of is Jace is a bit of more of a runner. Mm-hmm. If he gets to his read in the pass game, doesn't like it, he runs. So we've got to be very, very cautious of that. He's a little bit quicker, has a good arm, but can throw it on the run a little bit better. But he's going to tuck it down and go. So we've got to be mindful of that.
You guys did a good job bottling him up a year ago, and now he was part of the all-freshman team now as a sophomore. We'll see what happens Saturday with kickoff at 2 p.m. at Johnson Haygood. Get your tickets while you still can. Only standing room available at this point, and only a couple hundred left. But get your tickets and come join us this weekend in what should be a fun weekend around campus and a great game as well, kicking off at 2 at Johnson Haygood at Saturday for the Citadel and Furman. We'll continue to get ready for that one and break down this week's opponent and look ahead to kickoff this weekend with the coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, when we come back to the Coaches Show here from the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston. The Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. We'll continue to look ahead to Saturday's matchup at Furman when we return after this, all across the Citadel Sports Network. coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here from the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston, and the Coach's Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. Don't forget, first let me tell you, there's only a couple hundred standing room only tickets remaining for Saturday against Furman. Kickoff at 2 o'clock at Johnson Hagan. We'll continue to break that down in just a moment. And then that allows me to also remind you that if you come out and ask a question to Coach here in person each and every week, you'll have a chance to potentially win some tickets to potentially sold-out games moving forward. So there's an opportunity for you, including for this Saturday against Furman, 2 p.m. kick. Coverage will begin at 1 p.m. across the radio network. If you can't make it, you can listen and stream the broadcast from anywhere in the world. And if you weren't fortunate enough to get one of those tickets before they're all sold out for Saturday's game, the Bulldogs are back home for the first time in a while. You know, Furman, they're coming into this game 3-2. They just went a month without a home game. The Citadel, something similar in terms of the lack of home games early on. And, Coach, you're back home this week. This is one of just 2 home games before Halloween weekend. So first, let me ask you just how has this opening schedule been with the amount of road games early on so far?
Well, you know, the road games themselves, I mean, they're challenging enough, but we face some pretty good teams on the road. I was trying to explain it in the press conference a little bit as things are starting to shake out. You look at that Campbell team. Campbell just beat a really good North Carolina Central team. I think they may have been undefeated themselves. Their only loss right now is to a very good William and Mary team. And then Mercer, I don't think their only loss right now is to Auburn. And then, of course, App State's got JMU in North Carolina as their 2 losses. So very challenging early part. The other thing about it is when you go on the road early part of the year, chances are you're hitting a lot of night games. You know, people like to play the night games early on in the year. It's a little bit cooler, a little bit better for the fans, and that's always a challenge is when you're coming back late at night and you're getting back at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning only to turn it back around again. So it's those are other issues. That's why I really didn't mind opening up on a Thursday night if we're going to play at 6 o'clock. At least it gets us another day or so that we can catch our breath before we're going into the next week there. So all those things are in consideration there, especially early on in the year. Very good, very tough schedule, but I do believe that this schedule is going to prepare us for the rest of the way out and hopefully, reap some of the benefits from the early part of the rough scheduling here later on in the year.
I know there were some little issues getting home from Mercer. What about Appalachian State leaving the mountains?
You know, actually, we were fairly smooth. We got out of there about as good as we possibly could, aside from the score. We coasted on down the mountain. We didn't have any issues running back into Charleston as far as the roads were all open. Everything was pretty good. Yeah. So as far as my hurricane experience goes, this is maybe one of the better ones. It was the least. We had to push our time departing up a little bit. Planning on departing at 10 o'clock in the morning. We just departed at 8 o'clock. So other than that, we were very little put out by it. It was a little bit colder in Boone than I expected it to be, but certainly wasn't unbearable. It was perfectly fine.
By the way, coldest Citadel game in 13 years since 2009, as it was 47 degrees at kickoff at Appalachian State. My follow-up question to the home games is when you have, obviously it'll even out, you'll get more home games in the second half of the season, but when you have just the 2 home games here in the first, I think it's 7 games, does it add even more importance to a game like this Saturday when you are actually home for the first time in a couple weeks?
Well, it'll certainly make us appreciate that, and the other thing I try to explain in the press conference is that it's hard for the guys that don't get to travel. They don't get the experience game day. You know, they work all that week, and they don't have that game day experience. You know, if you're every other week, or you go a week or 2 here and there where you're not traveling, that's understandable. But when you go a full month and you haven't had a home game, it could be really challenging for those guys to stay motivated. So I got to hand it to the scout team guys. We're very appreciative of those guys. Without them, we wouldn't be able to practice, and they'll get the reward hopefully here coming up this weekend.
Kicking off against Furman Saturday at 2 o'clock. Furman 3-2, just as they were going into the matchup with them last year up at their place. They opened the season with a 52-0 win against North Greenville, loss at Clemson 35-12, and then in conference beat ETSU on the road 27-14, came down to the Low Country a couple weeks ago, beat Charleston Southern 24-19, and this past Saturday, coming off a loss 34-27 at home against Sanford when they let a double-digit lead slip away. A lot was made about what happened in the game. There's an apology from the conference about the officials. I'm not going to ask you about all that stuff, although I'm sure in the past you've been looking for apologies as well from the conference. But
still looking, by the way.
Of course. That was a first-time thing this week in regards to a call in the Furman game. What I did want to ask you about it, though, was the review took literally 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm one, if you ever listen to the radio broadcast, I always complain when reviews take a little too long. My thought's always been, if it takes that long, just keep the call on the field. We don't need to, Zapruder film a certain play. My question for you would be, just in general, when it comes to reviews, whether it's, messing up the flow of a game or just slowing things down, just what are your thoughts in terms of sometimes these reviews can take quite a few minutes as they really dissect these plays and it really presses pause on the action?
Well, TV timeouts disrupt the game as well.
That's true.
There's nothing more annoying than those. 2 minutes, sometimes the 2 minutes are necessary. You can kind of collect your thoughts and everything, but it does disturb the flow of the game. I'm not a huge proponent of instant replay. I know why we have it. What I really I couldn't understand was if we do have it and it's not clear. You're right. Well, why is it taking so long? As if we just don't have the video to do it, we don't have the video to do it, right? There's plenty of those around there. We just can't see enough of it. And you go around our league and we don't really know, what do we have, 5, 6 cameras at the most?
Yeah, right.
You're supposed to have, I think, 5. You're supposed to have them on the goal line. You're supposed to have them at the high 50 and then the end zone. If you can't get them off of that, then it's going to be hard. And there's certain areas on our field where I know if it goes to replay, I go, there's no way you can see it from where you are. I know exactly where our cameras are. There's no way that you can make a decision on it. It's going to stand whatever the call was on the field. You're right. When it goes to 14 minutes, there's obviously a lot going on in there, and it's probably a lot of conversation going on in the ears of the officials. The other thing is was it the replay guy or was it the guys on the field? Who's really at fault of it? If you have the replay, then maybe it's the guys in the booth. I don't know. Maybe they got it wrong up there. I don't know. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I kind of saw the clip, maybe watched it once or twice, couldn't tell myself, and moved on with my life. But it's replay. It's people have been making mistakes in games for years.
Yeah.
People are complaining about umpires and their strike zones and everything else right now. I mean, it's sometimes it's just human error part of the game, and I'm the first one to complain and get angry about it. But at the end of the day, I also know that it's just me being frustrated.
Furman, when you look at the team, they have not allowed a point in the fourth quarter this year, and interestingly enough, they have scored in the final 2 minutes of the first half in every game this year, including a touchdown in their last 4 in that 2-minute drill in the first half, which leads me to the question of, when it comes to the coin toss, do you automatically, I know it's in vogue that all teams, right, you defer, try to get those 2 possessions into the first half, start of the second half. Is that always the thought, or does it come down to sometimes the opponent, maybe even like weather, the matchup? Do you have a different thought process for each game?
No, not really. I usually do defer it, and if we have that opportunity. Now, there's been times where I said, we'll take it, but most of the time we do try to defer it. Sometimes you just want to set the tone, set the standard out there, maybe try to flip field position on them. But, yeah, you really want to try to gain 2 possessions on them, and that's Bill Belichick was a really big proponent of that when you go back in his really good years at New England. That's what he always tried to do, defer it, and then score once before half, come back and outscore it again. And it could become a 10, 14-point swing.
Yeah, and Furman's been able to do that this year. We looked at the film last segment. You talked about their tight end, Ryan Miller, who actually leads the conference in catches, not for tight ends, but all receivers. Tony's defense has done a really good job in the last couple of years slowing down this Furman offense, especially the passing attack. But just in general, when the number 1 receiver is a tight end, what sort of challenges does that bring compared to when you're focused on a wide receiver? What sort of different challenges come with the idea of trying to slow down specifically a good pass-catching tight end? Well,
the matchup, because you can't match him up on your best corner because he's a lot in the run game. He's a lot in the run game. He's a lot in the play-action game. He's a lot in the boot game. All those things combined it makes it very challenging to cover a really good H-back tight end the way that they have him played. So it's always going to be your matchup is you're going to try to find your best guy to get matched up on him, whether it's a safety or whether it's a corner, wherever it is, or it's a linebacker. Sometimes they're going to try to find a way to get it mismatched on you. You just can't play it any other way, and that's where offenses have done a really good job, and that's where he's done a good job of getting them open.
Last question I'll ask you, and then we'll get to some questions that have been submitted for Coach. You still have a few moments to do that. We'll get to that in our final segment in just a moment. When you look at the numbers, your offense is number 1 in the conference in time of possession. Furman's number 2. You guys are both over 35 minutes a game. So when it comes to a matchup like that, I imagine the idea is fewer possessions, and almost like both sides, you guys will be playing keep away from one another.
It is, and we've seen this before. We've had, we've gone against the Wofford teams that do it quite a bit. Teams last week, they big played us a little bit it, but those guys do the same thing. App State's a 35-minute possession game as well. So it will be possessions, could be few and far between, or they could be turned over pretty quickly depending on how well your defense is playing or how well your run defense is playing. And that's exactly what I said to the team, man. If we want to play good run defense, then we better practice good run defense, and that's what we've been doing the last 2 days.
Kickoff is 2 p.m. Saturday. Only a handful of tickets, couple hundred standing room only tickets left. So get yours while you still can and come out and join us this weekend in Johnson-Haygood in what should be a great environment. Hopefully a beautiful day and a great game as well for the Citadel against Furman. Big rivalry matchup, of course, the oldest rivalry matchup going in the conference dating back over 100 years, and it kicks off 2 p.m. on Saturday. When we come back, we'll wrap up the Coach's Show, and we'll do so with submitted questions for the coach himself, and we'll get to those questions when we return. It's the Coach's Show with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here from the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston, brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. We'll wrap things up when we come back after this, all across the Citadel Sports Network. Show. One final segment here tonight from the Sportsbook of Charleston in North Charleston with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, as we get ready for the Citadel and Furman this Saturday, 2 p.m. kick at Johnson Haygood. Get some of the final standing room tickets while you still can before the game completely sells out this weekend. And we have some questions to get to with Coach, as we always do before we go, and a chance for somebody who submitted a good question to get themselves some tickets to the sold-out game this weekend. So let's dive right in, Coach. First up is Candace asking, how long have you been a coach?
25 years. This is my 25th year.
What was, refresh my memory, what was the first gig?
The first gig I was the outside linebackers coach at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Dickinson College. I know somebody who played there way back when. Josh asks, who has had a very good week of practice?
Okay, so we've had a couple of guys that have had a really good week of practice. As I look on the defensive side, Kyler Estes has had a really nice week. We're asking him to kind of fill in at the linebacker spot right now. Jamazon's played a little bit, but Kyler's been the starter there. Done a really good job of fitting a lot of the fronts and doing a good job in the inside run period, which is important to us. Our offensive line has done a good job, but probably in particular there. I like the way our right guard is playing Zach Blanchard. If you look at it, kind of an unsung hero kind of guy, very, very solid, steady, strong guy in there. So Zach's probably had the best of the week so far.
I believe I've asked you this in the past, but Shane wants to know if you have any game day superstitions.
I don't. I used to. I kind of gotten rid of them all and cycled them all out and everything. I do get up and I do run, and that's not necessarily superstition. It's kind of more of a routine.
What was the biggest one you had in the past that you got rid of?
I used to wear the same underwear over and over again. I would wash them.
Of course, yeah, washed in between, of course.
Or Kevin would wash them.
I think this is more of a suggestion from Albie, but the idea of using more trick plays.
Well, if you got them and you got them drawn up, please let me. And if you guarantee that they're going to work, I will run them. But if you can't guarantee they're going to work, then I can't run them.
Seems fair. I think this is it Anna asks, what color uniform will the team be wearing this week?
Okay, so we've got to wear blue, okay? So we're at home, we got to wear blue. Now the question is, do we wear blue pants or do we wear white pants? All right? What would you rather see us in?
I like the all blue.
She likes the blue with the white.
Ooh, blue with the white.
Yeah, she likes the blue with the white. I'm right there with you. We're definitely going to rock the blue pants, I think, though.
Yeah, I like it. Jeff asks, and this is timely and fitting because today the Citadel Athletics, they announced a partnership with Fresh Blends to provide smoothies to cadet athletes. So, of course, Jeff wants to know, what's your favorite smoothie flavor?
So I have not had a smoothie out of this machine. I do make my own smoothie at home, and I bring it in. It's just something that I've started over here the last few months. My favorite one right now is I've got banana, strawberry, blueberry with a little bit of vanilla. I do throw some oats in there, and it mix it all up, and then I save it for after my workout. Now, the guys, Johnny was just talking about the beet one right in there. The guys seem to like the beet one as well. Bordy ended up liking that one as well. I have not had one out of there, but it has been a big hit, and we do appreciate it. And it's been certainly something. I've been in the weight room. I've seen a lot of guys getting in there and getting some extra nutrition in, which we certainly could use and need.
Yeah, big step for the Citadel, as Ohio State and Tennessee are the only other programs in the NCAA to partner with Fresh Blend. So pretty good company there. I'll ask you a question. I went to go see a movie today in the theater. It's October. Love all the new horror films coming out. When's the last time you actually went to a movie theater to see a film?
Oh, boy. It's got to be with the girls. I know we probably went and saw, like, Hotel Transylvania or something like that a few years ago, or Transylvania 2. I think the one on the boat was the last one I may have seen. But it's been a while. You know, I don't get out to the movies very often. If I do, it's usually with them, and fall asleep somewhere in between.
Candy guy at the movie theater? Do you get candy?
No. If I do anything, I'm a licorice, red licorice, Twizzler kind of a guy.
Interesting. All right.
Not black licorice, though.
That's good. Yeah, okay. Good. That's a happy medium.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Before we go, I always ask you, as the Bulldogs get ready for Furman this Saturday, 2 p.m. kick, I always ask you before we go, keys to the game. So when it comes to this Saturday, what are the most important things to get out of there with a victory against the Paladins?
Yeah, you could kind of figure it out for what I've been talking about between containing the tight end and containing the running back. We've got to really keep our eyes on those two guys there. there. Offensively, I mean, it's no secret to anybody. We've got to score points. We've got to find a way to move the football. We've got to find a way to be more consistent. Even when we moved the football last week, we just couldn't put it in the end zone. We've had too many red zone opportunities to not have any points on the board over the last 2 weeks. So we've got to focus on that. We've got to concentrate on that. We've got to be, if it's a 15-play drive, we've got to finish a 15-play drive. We do have to try to create some bigger plays, and maybe some of Albie's trick plays will help us out.
Well, the game kicks off Saturday at 2 p.m., and you can come out and join us. Only a few tickets remaining, standing room only, so get yours while you can. If not, coverage begins at 1 p.m. on the radio side of things, where you can listen throughout the world and coast to coast. Locally, it's 102.1 FM, 1450 AM, or online. Stream it online at the citycharleston.com. You can stream it there. Kickoff 2 p.m. Saturday. Coverage begins at 1. We'll be back here next week on Tuesday. And Tuesday moving forward to talk about whatever happens this weekend with the coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. Coach, as always, appreciate the time and wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, Luke. I'll see you there.
Absolutely. That's Coach Thompson. Bulldogs kick it off with Furman Saturday at 2. And we'll be back here next Tuesday for next week's Coaches Show. From the Sports Book of Charleston in North Charleston, brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. We'll see you this Saturday for the Citadel and Furman at Johnson Haygood Stadium with kickoff at 2 p.m. all across the Citadel Sports Network.